up. It's the week of the busted IPO. Peloton continuing to drop. It fell 11% yesterday in its trading debut, making it the second worst unicorn IPO debut this year. The shares are down as much as 8% today before paring their losses, down about 4% right now. This, of course, after WeWork had to postpone its IPO, and Endeavor pulled its IPO as well last night, saying it would continue to evaluate the timing as market conditions develop.
You could probably go all the way back to Lyft and Uber to talk about the IPOs that have been so highly anticipated that when they come to market, there was almost a sense of underwhelming that they kind of go public. The WeWork fiasco, you know, and I say that not in an editorial or opinionated sense, but the idea that the CEO has to step down. There's questions about the valuation that are now less than half of what they raised at the private round. All of those things are giving investors such pause that even underwriting banks are having a hard time pitching this to their clients. And they're going out there saying, that, I mean, we don't know what to do with this.
And it's a business model. We talked about Endeavor yesterday. Full disclosure, I'm a client. So I understand the talent piece of the business, but the entertainment piece, they own half of USC. They own Miss Universe.
That's what they're trying to pitch more of,
That's what they're pitching.
Absolutely.
But so the economics of that and putting all of those different business lines together just feels like the market is very unreceptive to business models it doesn't understand and see a path to profitability.
I mean, they should understand this. It's actually a business, existing.
It's also, there was this broad, whether it's a myth or conventional wisdom, that the private market was the smart money and retail was the dumb money. And now I think maybe it's not reversed, but maybe it just the private market underestimated how smart the public market would be, particularly at this stage in the economic cycle where the memory of the last crisis is still fresh in people's minds, and they're very skeptical of models that either, like Endeavor, don't make much business sense on the face of it, or just continue to generate losses in a very strong economy. And if you can't make money now, then when are you going to make money?
But it does seem like it might be sort of a broader theme in the market going on right now. At least I look at biotech and you think about risky assets. Biotech's down 5% this week. I mean, and if you think about a sort of a risky environment or risky investments that you're making right now, people are not really interested in that.
It's true. It's not just the IPOs, but it also, Kate Rudy's report about the other week was the worst performing IPOs this year have largely been biotech IPOs, and that's the crop where we're still seeing upwards of 8 or 10 names that are trying to go public.
Yeah, talk about companies that don't have profitability and work for a while. Hello, biotech.
You always think at least they're sitting on a lotto ticket, right? Some blockbuster
it's a binary
drug.
Or something like that, right?
Next up, the CDC is providing an update on the recent outbreak in vaping-related lung injuries. The agency reporting more than 800 cases now across 46 states and 1 U.S. territory. And Meg, we're learning more about what's some of the ingredients, I don't know how to describe them, in these products that are harming people might be.
There was a hope that we might learn what the common ingredient is, and the headline from the CDC call is that they still don't know. There is not one common substance that's been identified here. What it does look like is that the majority of people who've fallen ill have vaped THC products, although some people did report exclusively using nicotine, so you can't even point your finger there. So there was national data looking at that, and then there was also an investigation from Wisconsin and Illinois, which reported out today, which said still there were tons of brands being used, and most of them in terms of THC were obtained sort of socially on the street from a dealer at school, from friends or family. There is one brand that was associated more than others. About 2/3 of people used a brand called Dank Vapes, which I never thought would be words I would say. And so they're still trying to figure out what's going on.
But the elephant in the room is Juul. So it did not come up per se, or?
Juul didn't come up per se, and of course Juul is not made for vaping cannabis and THC. They are talking more about these THC cartridges, which are, not supposed to be used with Juul, though some people talk about sort of configuring devices to be used.
Got it. It's too bad that they couldn't come up, they can't pinpoint it. Because we had a guest on the other day who develops a vitamin E testing sort of kit, and it's not clear that that's even the
But that's the hot
issue.
button, right? Vitamin E was one of those things that they were saying could be in heavy doses.
Yeah,
one
pesticides as well. I mean, a fungicide.
Right. Well, NBC News did their own investigation into this, and it's really fascinating to read the article about the illicit cannabis, substances they tested, and they found they did have vitamin E, and they had fungicides that, when turned into the things that you're vaping, can basically become like cyanide.
And that's going to be the question. If it's a lot of black market stuff, would regulation of the legit stuff do any good
from established brands? That's what some people have said. Now that the genie's out of the bottle, so to speak, on vaping, it's going to be really hard to prevent people from accessing these products somehow, which is a really scary thought.
Yeah, and so CDC tells people you should not vape right now as the investigation is ongoing, and particularly don't vape THC products. Of course, folks who've switched from combustible cigarettes are using vaping products with nicotine to try not to go back to cigarettes.
Exactly.
Tobacco analysts are openly speculating now this could cause some people to go back to regular cigarettes.
Wow. It's like there's no good outcome here.
Yeah.
No matter how you look at it. All right, moving right along, let's talk some Apple. The company reportedly plans to release feature-length films in theaters before making them available on the new streaming service. The Wall Street Journal says the strategy is more of what Amazon has done, giving movies that 3-month theatrical window before going online, as opposed to the Netflix model. It would be a stark contrast to Netflix, which does push to release movies in theaters and online simultaneously. Apple here, no surprise, also chasing some awards ceremonies.
They're doing this movie with Sofia Coppola, who I love, On the Rocks. It's got some Bill Murray and lots of great people.
They know their audience.
Yeah, but it's like they say in the wealth world, there's the best way to become a millionaire is to start as a billionaire and then invest in Hollywood. And it's just the idea
Rich
that
people humor.
Exactly. The idea that this is in some way not their future, because obviously Apple has a lot of different possibilities, but the idea that this is going to be part of their future is to make movies. Mm-hmm. I just, as an allocation of capital, as where that company could be headed, it's just a little disappointing that this is where they're going to put money.
I wonder.
It's so hard. There have been companies for so long doing this for ages, trying to find hits, trying to make money.
And it's extremely
difficult. Clearly it's a part of sort of getting the hardware platform to grow faster as opposed to just on its own.
Right.
But it's a tough
business.
But
one thing they all seem to want is the attention from the awards to help just drive attention to their offerings, generally speaking. And I wonder, is that even worth it? No one even watched the Emmys when it was just on.
So there's a reason why Apple shares have stalled out, very much so, over the course of the past year. And it's to this allocation point, right? I mean, this is a company with $250 billion in just cash lying around the world, that sort of thing. And I'm just guessing. I mean, that's a rough back of the envelope situation. Whether or not you can actually do something with that. Now, the counterpoint to Robert is that the amount of money, however many millions they're throwing at this, is a tiny drop in the bucket for the resources Apple has at its disposal. But if they cannot do something with that, then what does it say about the future of the company? They cannot move the needle in any way, shape, or form. This is not a moonshot, but this is a way for them to maybe say, hey, if we can hyper-grow this, kind of like Amazon hyper-grew cloud services, then maybe this is something that we could do.
Remember when Sony dominated hardware with the Walkman and television, and they started getting into movie production, and that was it? Then it was like, okay,
it was over for the
done.
company. Okay, well, they all better tread carefully. I like how with Apple, it's like, well, at least you can say they can afford to lose the money. Good luck to them. Finally, and my favorite story of the day, if you're tired of flying next to crying babies on a long flight, one airline in Japan can help you avoid that. Japan Airlines is introducing a baby seat map. Yes, I love this. It lets you know where young kids will be sitting on your flight with a little seat icon. Now, the hilarious thing to me is in the articles about this, people were outraged. They were like, why should I be shamed about my kid? People should be held. What? You should know where the baby's going, and then you can choose whether to sit next to a kid or not.
We're all parents here, right? We're all parents here, and all of our children are either small or had been very small at one point. So I would say, I remember the rant that Andrew Ross Sorkin went on Squawk Box with regard to flying in a certain class of airplane and having to sit next to kids. And I would just say this, as the father of a sometimes crying 2-year-old now on a plane.
But do you take them in business?
I empathize. Listen,
I'm
a coach flyer,
but I mean, versus business. I think it's a brilliant idea to give people the information, Meg, and let them say, okay, you know what? If you want a seat next to
nobody's going to choose a seat next to a baby.
Cheaper? What if it's cheaper?
I mean,
even better for you. Even better for you when you're flying with your kids. Nobody's around you. But why stop at babies? Why not an over-talker icon?
Exactly.
Why not
Thank you. Why not a man spreader?
Smelly food icon.
This is different. Yeah. And what I like is there are a couple of other airlines pursuing strategies here where AirAsia in 2017 introduced a quiet zone on flights. It was 8 rows prohibiting kids under 10. I think this is genius. Budget Indian carrier Indigo also has these quiet zones for no kids under 12. Great. I mean, there's a real service to let people sit where they want to sit instead of being forced to sit where they want.
How about a zone where you can't recline your seat? I mean, like, there are a lot of things that annoy people on planes, and I just think to take the devil's advocate position here, this does stigmatize parents traveling with kids, and sometimes you don't have a choice. If your family lives in California like mine does, I want to take them to see them, and I feel bad enough. There's nobody on the plane who feels worse than the
Wouldn't you rather the people around you know going into it that you have a kid instead of don't?
I would, but I don't think it's all the time.
Right.
It's just whoever ended up with that seat. I think at the end of the day, planes are already crowded enough. Somebody's going to end up in that terrible seat, and they're not going to want to. I don't think this solves the problem.
I think